Now, let's go over to France. Let's talk about what's happening over in France. French lawmakers approve a bill that makes abortion a constitutional right. French lawmakers have overwhelmingly approved a bill to enshrine abortion rights in France's constitution, making it the only country to explicitly guarantee a woman's right to voluntarily terminate a pregnancy. While other countries, like the United States, are trying to take women back to Gilead or take women to Gilead in the Handmaid's Tale live action series. The historic move was proposed by President Emmanuel Macron as a way to prevent the kind of rollback some abortion rights seen in the United States in recent years. And the vote during a special joint session of France's parliament drew a long standing ovation among lawmakers. The measure was approved in a 780 to 72 vote in the Palace of Versailles. Abortion enjoys a wide support in France across most of the political spectrum and has been legal since 1975. Many female legislators in the hall smiled broadly as they cheered, while a small group of protesters stood outside the joint session. There were jubilant scenes of celebrations all over France as women's rights activists hailed the measure promised by Macron within hours of the Dobbs ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court in 2022. The U.S. decision has reverberated across Europe's political landscape, forcing the issue back into public debate in some countries at a time when the far-right nationalist parties are gaining influence. So, America is setting trends, but at least France is like, nah, we'll let women continue to be able to make decisions for themselves. Both houses of France's parliament, the National Assembly and Senate, has separately adopted a bill to amend Article 34 of the French Constitution, but the amendment needed final confirmation by a 3/5 majority in the special joint session. The measure specifies that the law determines the conditions by which is exercised the freedom of women to have recourse to an abortion, which is guaranteed. The French measure is seen as going a step further than the case was in the former Yugoslavia, whose 1974 constitution said that a person is free to decide on having children. Yugoslavia dissolved in the early 1990s, and all its successor states have adopted similar measures in their constitutions that legally enable women to have a abortion, though they do not explicitly guarantee it. In the lead up to the vote, French Prime Minister Gabriel Attal addressed the more than 900 lawmakers gathered for the joint session in Versailles. He called on them to make France a leader in women's rights and set an example for countries around the world. We have a moral debt to women, Attal said. He paid tribute to Simone Weil, a prominent legislator, former health minister, and key feminist who in 1975 championed the bill that decriminalized abortion in France. We have a chance to change history, Attal said in a moving, determined speech. Make Simone Weil proud, he said to a standing ovation. None of France's major political parties have questioned the rights of abortion, including Marine Le Pen's far-right National Rally Party and the conservative Republicans. Le Pen, who won a record number of seats in the National Assembly 2 years ago, said on Monday that her party planned to vote in favor of the bill, but added there is no need to make this a historic day. A recent poll showed support for abortion rights among French public at more than 80%, consistent with previous surveys. The same poll also showed that a solid majority of people are in favor of enshrining it in the Constitution. A group of about 200 anti-abortion protesters gathered soberly in Versailles ahead of the vote, some holding a banner reading, "I too was an embryo." A larger crowd of women's rights activists gathered at Trocadero Plaza, overlooking the Eiffel Tower, letting out a collective cry of joy as the vote results came in. Others celebrated around France even before the joint parliamentary session began. Now, just to let y'all know, even with France respecting women's right to choose, France's birth rate is 1.83, which is higher than the United States, higher than Germany, and it has the highest fertility rate in the EU. Now, France is experiencing a birth rate slump. That is global, though. lots of women are opting out of parenthood. They're opting out of being mothers or having one child. So the fact that they are still at 1.84, at 1.84, and everywhere else is falling, is not even close to 2, it still speaks to what is going on in France. Okay, so in 2021, France had the highest fertility rate among the EU member states with 1.84 live births per woman, according to Eurostat, the statistical office of the EU. Malta had the lowest with 1.13 live births. This average for the EU as a whole is 1.53. So I'm just putting that out there. Even respecting women, giving women rights, which they already had, this is just a small change, well, just a change in the Constitution. But respecting women's rights, women still are choosing to have babies. A woman jumps into my Instagram inbox. I'm Bourbon Bougie over on Instagram. But a woman jumps into my inbox and says, "Girl, I have an entire comment thread on YouTube of Brazilian emotionals mostly whining about France's decision to include the right to abortion in its constitution. I need to translate it and send it to you, the originals of the translation to their crying. Oh my God, I spent the day yesterday explaining to those people constitutional law and why a 12-week fetus does not have consciousness yet. And they still fought me. And when they ran out of arguments, one of them told me my reasoning was shallow, egocentric, and mediocre. The emotions. I also noticed Brazilians who celebrated France's decision were all men, though I know there's a great portion of the female population that's pro-choice. It's like they know they'll get attacked if they say anything, or maybe they were hiding behind male accounts. Anyway, I thought it might be a good addition to the Dust is Global series. Thank you so much for all your. She continues with the Brazilian evangelicals and some Catholics were all whining in a new report in Portuguese about the right to abortion being included in the French Constitution. So then she starts sending me screenshots of them speaking in Portuguese. Well, no, y'all don't know, but I do not speak Portuguese. But she was nice enough to sit up here and translate some things for me so that we can see some Brazilian emotional tears. And I'm here for that. I appreciate her for taking the time to do this for us. Okay, so if you guys want to read some Portuguese, here are some of the comments, but you don't have to do that. I'll read you some of the translated comments. So she says, this is from someone using a woman's full name as a username. They said, the Muslims will love this. Now is the time foreigners will take over. And then she said, me. It's not French women's obligation to repopulate the pale population of the country. Dude, women are people with the right to be treated with dignity. She says, some guy said, you're done, France. Au revoir. She said, another guy said, this is all the Islamic State wants. France is just creating the conditions for their own ruin. Congratulations. She says, someone using a common female nickname. Unfortunately, you had the chance to be born, didn't you? This comment is directed at the lady that's doing the translating. Then she says, there's this one in which a guy says that Bolsonaristas of extreme religion beliefs is revolted by this good news. And a guy answers him, right, the devil must be as happy as who supports this decision. And he answers back, the devil? You lunatic. And then one guy says, good thing your mother didn't think like this, huh? Why is there always a clapback? Like, you're here, right? Because your mother. And then she says, this one guy wishes other country follows France's example. And she says, and a guy comments twice that the country of pets will be a success sarcastically and says this is an example of the ruin of a country. So I guess pets is an ongoing joke, no matter the culture, country, or race. She says, and this is funny because I checked, and France has actually a natality rate per woman a bit higher than Brazil. She says, and I'm not done yet. There are still so many more gems. So I went and checked. The Brazilian birth rate is 1.65. If you remember, the French birth rate is currently at 1.83. So 1.83 is indeed higher than 1.65. So maybe the Brazilian men should be worried about their own birth rate. instead of France. I'm just saying. Okay, so now she says this is from a woman. Come back already, Lord, to do justice in this world that became so cruel. Everyone is unaliving each other. Now they want to unalive their little kids inside the womb that belong to you, followed by a bunch of crying emojis. And a guy hilariously posted, "No, Lord, don't come back. Stay there and continue to do nothing to anyone," followed by a bunch of laugh emojis. All right, she says, in this one, someone asked, how is it possible to put this in the Constitution with the right to life? I go back to my speech about how the right to life belongs to the person and how the woman's right to be treated with dignity doesn't allow for her body to be used without her consent. Then the next guy says, big moral and ethical mistake. Big mistake. Huge. And then a woman says, almost 2 minutes of applause to the right to unalive a child inside their mother's womb. Deplorable. In the middle of the information age, people resort to unaliving to avoid children. Really? Really? Now, this woman did give me a lot of translated comments, but I'm going to stop there with this one. So then another woman emails me, and she specifically tells me to go over to the New York Times community post and look at some of the comments under their post about France. This comment says, lots of angry Americans here. I don't understand, for a country so obsessed with my freedom, don't tread on me. It seems a lot of Americans are against something that protects an individual's rights. Love to all the Americans and others in the comments that know this is a good measure. We get a lot of things wrong here, but I'm glad we got this one thing right, especially in a time where old, dusty ideas seem to gain in popularity. Seems like some want humanity's endless progress to stop. And then someone says, well, it is an American newspaper. Who'd you think was going to show up? And then Hawaii 3231 says, well, their point was Americans are known for strongly valuing freedoms, but that doesn't reflect by the comments here. And then Thomas was like, exactly on point. It's weird how some people from the land of the free seemed intent on stripping some people of their freedom, yet retain the mantle of the beacon of liberty. Exactly. And then Hillary says, freedom isn't the right to do whatever you want. You can't enslave your neighbor. You can't steal their car. You can't frame them for a crime. That doesn't make you less free. It's the vehicle by which you become it. Telling mothers there's no psychological effect of hiring a doctor to terminate their pregnancy is asinine. The body keeps score. It knows, even if we refuse to. There you go. That's her comment on, okay, whatever. The fact that you're concerned about the psychological health of mothers who do get a abortion and not the mothers unable to because their rights were stripped shows exactly how pitiful your attempt at empathy is. This person says, America has become a cautionary tale for the rest of the world. It absolutely has. It absolutely has. Even the aliens don't want to come here. This person says, not a constitutional right, but a constitutional freedom. Technically quite different. Okay. Someone else says, enshrine being the key word there. Okay. Person says, at least our dysfunction is helping some people. All right, there you go. Other people are like, nope, we can't become like America. We cannot become like America. Let's do something completely different. This person says, France is so great sometimes. Somebody else says, they enshrined it in case stupid becomes contagious. This person says, I know where rich Republican women are going to vacation to get over a guy. Kitty Walker says, it's not about terminating pregnancies as it is about whose right it is to choose what is best for an individual person. In a free society, it should be the individual's right to choose for herself. Vic says, good for them. This person says, must move to Michigan or France. This person says, Yugoslavia did it first in 1974. France is leading the way. Liberty. Viva la Revolution. France in the vanguard of freedom. Merci beaucoup. This man said, this just in. France welcomes the devil with the biggest hug known to mankind. That sounds a bit hyperbolic. I'm just saying. Okay, y'all go ahead, weigh in. I know that lots of people are making comments. I'm kind of enjoying the meltdowns. It's kind of funny, but I'm not laughing at the way that the Christo-fascists are trying to take us into the Handmaid's Tale here in the United States. But, if other countries see us and start making changes over there, then at least they get a win over there. All right, jump in the comments. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. All right, so we got France guaranteeing women the right to choose, make their own reproductive choices. We got Alabama saying that embryos are children. Now we got Kentucky saying that you could collect child support on unborn children. And I am sure that the pro-life men are going to be so ecstatic about this. Kentucky Senate passes bill to grant the right to collect child support for unborn children. I wonder if they're going to be able to claim unborn children on their taxes, like retroactively do that as well. That's going to be interesting. All right, let's check out this article. The Republican-led Kentucky Senate voted overwhelmingly Tuesday to grant the right to collect child support for unborn children, advancing a bill that garnered bipartisan support. The measure would allow a parent to seek child support up to a year after giving birth to retroactively cover pregnancy expenses. The legislation, Senate Bill 110, won Senate passage on a 36-2 vote with little discussion to advance to the House. Republicans have supermajorities in both chambers. Republican State Senator Whitney Westerfield said afterwards that the broad support reflects a recognition that pregnancy carries with it an obligation for the other parent to help cover the expenses incurred during those 9 months. Westerfield is a staunch abortion opponent and sponsor of the bill. I believe that life begins at conception, Westerfield said while presenting the measures to his colleagues. Oh, Whitney is a man. Okay, to his colleagues. But even if you don't, there's no question that there are obligations and costs involved with having a child before that child is born. The measure sets a strict time limit, allowing a parent to retroactively seek child support for pregnancy expenses up to a year after giving birth. Oh, this is Whitney Westerfield. My bad, y'all. I just heard Whitney and thought Whitney was a woman. So if there's not a child support order until the child's 8, this isn't going to apply, Westerfield said when the bill was reviewed recently in a Senate committee. Even at a year and a day, this doesn't apply. It's only for orders that are in place within a year of the child's birth. Kentucky is among at least 6 states where lawmakers have proposed measures similar to Georgia law that allows child support to be sought back to conception. Georgia also allows prospective parents to claim its income tax deduction for dependent children before birth. Utah enacted a pregnancy tax last year, and variations of those measures before lawmakers in at least a handful of other states. I'm not really so concerned about Utah. They just had to pass a law that allowed women to get away from abusive men. So who really cares? And a lot of these states, if they are not protecting actual born children, this doesn't matter. But the Utah thing just stuck out to me because I just read up on Ohm's law. That's Ohm's law. The Kentucky bill underwent a major revision before winning Senate passage. The original version would have allowed a child support action at any time following conception, but the measure was amended to have such an action apply only retroactively after the birth with the time limit. Despite the change, abortion rights supporters will watch closely for any attempt by anti-abortion lawmakers to reshape the bill in a way that sets the stage for personhood for a fetus. That is all they're doing. That's all they're doing. The measure still needs to clear a House committee and the full House. Any House change would send the bill back to the Senate. The debate comes amid the backdrop of a recent Alabama Supreme Court ruling that frozen embryos are legally protected children, which spotlighted the anti-abortion movement's longstanding goal of giving embryos and fetuses legal and constitutional protection on par with those of the people carrying them. As we continue down the path to Gilead, here's our latest story. Jump in the comments and let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.